But I'm quite curious because obviously you're juggling so much stuff with your Cantonese, your Mandarin, your classical Chinese, and having tried to learn Spanish as well. How do you do you find yourself to kind of start in one thing, stop in another, start in another thing again, something are you kind of do you try and make a schedule and balance it, or is it just whatever you feel interested in that month, or what? How do you do that?
No, I think I've got quite an obsessive personality type.
Yeah, me too.
So when I was doing Cantonese, I was like, I'm doing Cantonese now. I'm all in. When I did Spanish for 6 months, I barely listened to any Cantonese apart from every now and again. For the past year and a half I can't remember. I started in April 2019, so coming up to 2 years. I was literally just full steam ahead with Mandarin. So I didn't juggle it. That's why my Cantonese is in a dire state it is now, because I didn't juggle it. I just went full ahead with Mandarin.
Do you not get so depressed when you see a language that you put so much time and effort into slowly degenerating? I can't handle it.
Not really, because it's still there. Someone linked me. I've only did Spanish for half a year, and someone linked me a video the other day, and I watched it, and I was like, oh cool, I can still understand a lot of it. And it's kind of when you watch it, it's quite a cool feeling, because every sentence I listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that's the thing.
Yeah.
Or I listen to it and I'm like, okay, I understand what they mean. I don't remember knowing that word before. I think that might also be from Mandarin. So there's that kind of I feel that it's always there. And I listen to a podcast in Cantonese by my friend Israel, and he actually has full Cantonese transcripts to the podcasts. If you're interested, I can send you that as well.
Okay, nice.
And it's about linguistics and language learning and stuff. So, and I listened to episode 1 and 2 for that, and I was like, okay, I can actually understand most of this still. Just my outputs are messed up, basically. But so I feel like it's there, and I could get it back within a space of a few months if I wanted to. It's just a case of going back and doing it. And I feel like when the time comes, I'm happy to do that. But for now, I'm happy just to focus more on Mandarin, because I kind of want my Mandarin to be better than my Cantonese. And I've not really said this online before, but my reasoning is anyone I know that knows Cantonese, they can speak flawless English anyway. Whereas when I was in Taiwan, being in the situation where I really want to be able to explain this concept to people, but I physically can't, it really annoys me and frustrates me and motivates me to want to try and improve. And because I like talking about science quite a lot, there's so many things and technical words that I don't know. It's just little stuff. I'd be going out for drinks with my friends, and they're like, oh, I need to go to the toilet. We always say broke the seal in English.
Yeah.
And I like to explain, oh, well, actually, it's to do with the inhibition of the enzyme for the reabsorption of water in your kidneys. That's why the water passes straight through your body, and blah, 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 blah. And I can talk about these things so effortlessly in English, and the fact that it's such a big part of what I like, and I can't express it in Chinese really frustrates me.
Definitely.
So that's the motivation with that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, definitely. You can lean a lot more on English when you talk to Hong Kongers as well. Sometimes you watch two Hong Kongers talk about something scientific, and they're talking 40% English anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
all the actual content, all of the words that aren't joiner words or connectives, all of the actual content of the sentence is in English anyway.
It's literally Gamla, Korega, Samloy, Mo, freedom of speech la, Mo, democracy la. I'm just wait, are you okay? Fine.
Yeah. Nigo perspectively gong, or got that needy actors had gong, Nigo topic yeah.
The technical vocabulary la.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any plans to live in Asia or live abroad?
Not right now. For the moment, I just want to try and, stay close to my family in the UK. I think it's one of those things that I'd be interested in doing more short-term things. I did a sabbatical for a year. Maybe if I can find a secondment and work over there for a little bit, or, maybe if you become I think sounds like a cool concept is, Ollie Richards, for example, he's like works online and is basically location independent, so he can just be like, yo, I'm based in London, but if I want to practice Cantonese for a month, I can just go to Hong Kong for a month just because I can and just work from over there.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of thing sounds probably more like the type of thing that I may do in the future if I'm lucky enough to be in that situation. Failing that, maybe secondments. Like I've spoken to the head of electronics at our company, and I know there's lots of jobs in Shanghai because that's where our head in Asia is. Like our engineering base in all of Asia is based in Shanghai, and it's like a big multinational company, and there's lots of new plants being installed in there for things that look really interesting. But then again, like I spoke to my boss and he was there like, oh yeah, well because I'm on the graduate scheme at the moment, he was like, oh yeah, I've basically got like the Chinese you sitting behind me, in the way that it just means like a Chinese graduate that's come through and did engineering at university and sat behind you, and he goes, if you want to test if you can speak about engineering, then I can get him on the Skype with you. I was like, don't bother, I can tell you now I can't.
That would require a lot of preparation before you made that call.
Yeah, exactly. So I've managed to download our company standards for like technical chapters for like how how ASU works, which is like air separation units, how compressors work, how like this big storage tanks work, and like all the controls. They've actually got the standards translated into Chinese, so I could just read through that sometime.
That sounds like
I've just been putting off for ages.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be great for mining out the vocabulary, but also extremely dry.
Well, it's interesting stuff because, like, I mean, I obviously like concepts, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. But
yeah, of course, yeah, that makes sense.
But on the one hand, I find it hard to understand in English, so it's like let's just put it off, and like if I do it in a few years, my Chinese will be better and my engineering will be better, so it'll be easier at that point. So it's like one of those things. It's not relevant to me right now, and the more I put it off, the easier it'll get when I come back to it. It's like the same with shadowing. Like if I put it off now, like I'm focusing mostly on improving my vocabulary. Like there's still a lot of vocabulary gaps with things like all the wuxia dramas and like the historical knowledge and context. So I'm just focusing on like getting as much input as I can, like reading novels mostly and like watching like dramas and stuff. And then when I come back to shadowing later, my listening will be better, so it'll be easier.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense. And how much of your kind of learning that you do these days is speaking, like, and how much of it is kind of study? What's the percentage, you think? Is it mostly study?
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak very often. I speak like once every 2 weeks. I have like literally the book that I showed you here for classical Chinese. The one thing I would recommend if anyone wants to learn, this book is really good. I can leave a link in the description, but get a teacher to go through it with you because there's so much ambiguity that. Yeah. So I literally just been once every 2 weeks for about an hour and a half going through with my teacher with that. And I think it's cool because it's learning like classical Chinese, which is helping me, and we're going through and reading it together and we're talking about the differences. But it's practicing output about like a more specific topic. And sometimes like last week she started asking me a lot of questions about my work, and I was trying to explain. It was literally, it's called bulk storage tanks. It's just a very big tank with liquid oxygen or nitrogen inside. And there's like various controls that you have in there. So I was trying to explain how some of the controls work in that. And there was loads of words that I don't know. Like I don't know the word for spring. I don't know the word for valve. Like, literally like a spring, like the one that you, yeah. And like just like stuff like that. There's so many like, just like you think springs shouldn't be a hard word to learn. It's just one that's not in my head. So yeah, just got to keep plugging in the gaps, I suppose. And there's still so many.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so many. That's yeah. I've always been since I'd say I neglect the studying these days, to be honest. For the last year or so, most of my practicing has been speaking in both Mandarin and Cantonese. Even here in the UK, I'll just have like really long phone calls with my friends, be it in mainland China or Hong Kong, and that'll kind of be my practice, which I think is good in the sense that my speaking is very fluent and it helps to keep it very fluent, but I'm not really necessarily learning that much new stuff. So yeah, it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel I guess you're probably at the a similar stage to me that sounds like. And I guess the best way to sum it up is that I understand a lot of stuff. I don't understand a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And from that point, I guess it's quite cool because like the majority of TV dramas, like if it's nothing like complicated, you can understand like close to 100%. There's be a few Chengyu thrown in there that I probably wouldn't know in one of the episodes, but like 99% of it plus is like, yeah, I can get that. And now even like the classical, like the wuxia dramas and the older dramas, like I can understand most of what's going on, and then every now and again some like, you know, some scenes in like the courtroom where they speak a bit more formal, I'd have to like maybe pause and rewind a few times, or like names of like kung fu moves that have like crazy long names that I'd like not know a character and whatever. So there's obviously lots of stuff. There's lots of new words that I can learn, but it's not going to inhibit my enjoyment of the TV show, which is, I think, is a really nice stage to be at.
Definitely. Yeah. yeah, exactly. You can be lazy. You can learn lazily.
Literally just watch like a few hours of TV, and I've started doing podcasts more recently. That I don't know why I didn't do it earlier. It's because I've got new headphones, like was it Sony X004 or something, like the pretty good noise cancelling headphones. And literally whenever I'm doing anything, just listen to a podcast, and it's so enjoyable. Now I can understand most of it and still picking up new words. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I do exactly the same. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good. It's good, man. It's a good stage to be at. And now when I was so used to being comfortable with that stage, and now I'm learning Japanese for the first time, and I'm back to zero again. But, you know, it's part of the fun.
I'm curious what you think about the difference between learning in the country where it's spoken versus at home. So with Cantonese, I don't know if you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
No, what's that?
It's basically a thing where I'll see if I can Google it and then show a graph. It's probably easier. Oh shit, my camera isn't. It's kind of like, oh, there's you. So this is basically what you talked about earlier. So you've got confidence here and competence. So quite quickly you think you're amazing, then you just learn how much you don't know, and your confidence goes down as you get better.
Yeah, that is a very, very accurate graph. Yeah, I've never seen that kind of that feeling expressed before, but makes a lot of sense.
So I felt like I was like around here with Cantonese, and the reason why I'm asking what I think the difference is between learning abroad versus in the home country. When I was doing Cantonese, I mostly watched a lot of, you know, like Ip Man, like Fist Within Four Walls, like kung fu dramas like that, or it was very much, you know, like have you heard of Triumph in the Sky? It's like stuff like that when it's a lot of everyday vocab, you know. Yeah, so I watched a lot of dramas like that. You think it's very easy to stay in your comfort zone. So I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm really good at Cantonese. I understand most stuff. But obviously, if I actually listen to a podcast about politics or history, or watched like an older TV show, or did any of these things, it'd be very easy to run into new words and like feel like out of my depth. But because I just didn't do that at the time, I was just kind of had that false sense of confidence that I was really good at Cantonese.
Yeah.
And I was wondering that to me, that was the main difference when I went to Taiwan. You know, and like I have to go to the hospital to get like a health checkup, and they're asking me to like, you know, like get an injection or do this and do that. And like, you know, you got to use like, you run into situations where you're forced to come across new words all the time. So I kind of found it a lot harder to stay ignorant of my weak points and just accept that I suck still in all these different areas.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that if you're learning from the UK, not being in the country. I never really had that happen to me so much because both times with both Cantonese and Mandarin, I was in the country pretty soon after I started learning them. And I think obviously there's that old kind of adage, there's something that a lot of people get used to saying that have never really learned a language before, is if you go to the country, then you'll pick it up easily. A lot of the time when people ask me, oh, how did you learn Chinese? Just as like a quick, easy answer, I'll say, oh, I lived there for ages. And they'll go, oh, okay. But we both know that doesn't really mean anything. If you move there, I think the key is if you move there when your Chinese is still pretty rubbish, still pretty beginner, being there won't be helpful at all.
I mean, I think it will. It'll just be very stressful.
Yeah, it makes it very stressful. You see immediately how little you know. You see immediately how difficult it is to communicate. You hear everywhere around you how little you understand, and you just end up blocking it out. It's not like you absorb it; you just block it out.
I think this depends on your personality type. I think the reason why, immersion is a buzzword, but I genuinely do think immersion is the key to learning any language. You've got to just expose yourself a lot. And the reason why most people who go to another country don't learn a foreign language because they're not immersing in it. They're immersing in English. They've got English friends. They do all this stuff in English. Yeah. But when I first got to Taiwan, I did not speak good Mandarin. There's a video of my level on YouTube in the 4-month mark, which is when I moved. When I could hold my own in a simple conversation with bad pronunciation on a very, very, very limited range of topics. But when I first got to Taiwan, I was just like, no, I'm not hanging out with any foreign people. I said I have a recessive personality type, so I only hung around with Taiwanese people. And most of the time, I'd go out for dinner with them for like an hour and a half, and I'd just be there struggling to understand anything that was said. And I'd go home and I'd feel really tired and just go and just watch some Chinese dubbed anime or something easy, just because it's like trying to let my brain relax. But like, I feel like forcing myself in that environment and actually like trying to push myself and pay attention and see what I can understand like every day for like hours was beneficial, but it was painful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you obviously have a big advantage, the fact that you're extremely motivated and you're quite stubborn in the fact that you definitely want to learn it no matter what. But most people aren't like that, right? Most people who move to China or Taiwan or whatever, 99% of them will say, I want to learn Chinese. They'll say that when they go there. That's my big aim. That's what I'm going to do. But the vast majority of them don't. And a lot of them assume that they'll just start picking it up when they're there. But if you haven't put in the groundwork before you go there, a lot of the time it can be a very disheartening experience. I did it in a video. I mentioned it in a video ages ago. I think personally it's best to study really hard before you go and go there on kind of an A2, even closer to B1 kind of level.
Oh, I was probably A2 really in Chinese when I went. Yeah, I probably was A2 in Chinese when I went.
Yeah, I bet you really reap the benefits because of that. If you had gone on kind of an A1 level, it would have been so much more difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, like I was immersing for about 4 to 5 hours a day for like 4 months before I went. I just hadn't practiced output at all, and when I went there, I was speaking to the taxi driver on the way back, and I was like, oh, cool, he's understanding what I'm saying. And like, there's obviously so much going over my head, but I can start to have a conversation. But that's the thing. Obviously, when you're learning a foreign language, I know you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and get used to ambiguity and just really put yourself outside your comfort zone. Whether it's trying to watch a TV show you don't fully comprehend, picking up a book and looking up every other word on someone like Plecker or Link, or trying to have painful conversations at the start. But most people, and this is what struck me when you were talking about German, is that most people think I'm going to get good, then I'm going to do that stuff. Whereas you, right from early on, you were like, well, if I want to practice by myself, I should be watching TV dramas. And most people never make that connection.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, we can talk all day about methods, and obviously methods do make a big difference, but it's all about just how much you want it. And most people just don't want it enough, and they haven't made peace with how difficult it's going to be. You need to make peace with the fact that it's going to be really difficult, and you need to really want it and be willing to just put in the hours. At the end of the day, I think that's the thing that separates the successful people from the non-successful people. Are you willing to really put in the graft?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And because sometimes it is a slog, but I guess there's also ways that you can make it more enjoyable, and also a lot about mindset. Like if you're doing inherently fun activities, like if you're an extrovert and you love speaking to people, then you can spend a lot of time speaking on like stuff like italki, and it can really motivate you. Now, obviously, it's going to be a lot harder than speaking in English, but the act of speaking is still inherently a fun thing to do. Yeah,
definitely. And then likewise, if you're a little bit more of an introverted person, you can spend a lot of time kind of reading or absorbing the culture.
So speaking of reading, you mentioned you want to read more in Chinese. Is there anything on your radar, or what sort of, if you were to read a book in English, what sort of stuff would you normally go for?
I read a lot of fiction, to be honest. I read a lot of fiction. I do read some kind of books about like politics and history as well. But I'd like to read some fiction in Chinese if I could. I just haven't. I think I haven't found the right kind of material. I don't think I've put enough effort into searching for the right kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I vaguely picked up some like very well-known classic kind of fiction. I can't even remember what it was called. Tried to read it, but it was just way above my head. It was about a year and a half ago. So I think I just need to put some more effort in. Maybe you can help me with some recommendations of some stuff that would be kind of more basic level that I could give a try.
Yeah, I think I've done that, by the way. It's just I don't know if you've heard of 100 Years of Solitude. When I was learning Spanish, I went to read that.
Yeah, I've read it in English.
I went to read it in Spanish, and I didn't really understand much of it. I read the whole thing on Link. There's bits I understood and bits I don't understood, but it was painful, to be honest, and I found it confusing with all the characters being named basically the same thing.
Yeah. You read the whole book in Spanish?
Yeah.
That's very impressive. That takes a lot.
But on Link, and a lot went over my head. And I've done the same thing in Chinese. I picked up a book called Sha Fu, which is like, I think the English name is The Butcher's Wife, which is literally like it's the character for killer and the character for like husband.
Yeah.
And that I tried to read that like quite early on. You know, I'd read like one book, which was Steve Kaufman's book in Chinese, and that was, you know, actually pretty okay to read because the chapters are super short and it's no complicated vocab. And then I went into that and I was like, I had no idea what was going on. But I still read the whole thing on my Kindle and it was painful. But it's one of those things I get really obsessed with. And I'm just going to like, and this is one of my weak points in language learning. I just stubbornly persist through something regardless of if it's actually beneficial. Like if I didn't read 100 Years of Solitude and read something else that was more at my level and more in line with what I like, I would have probably, you know, made more like progress, but I just didn't do that. And then with Mandarin before, I've gotten better at saying, okay, not that I'm not going to read this book ever. I can just put it on the later pile and read something else now. Like if I've got a lot of stuff I want to read, I can just read something more at my level now.
Yeah.
So for fiction, is there any specific genre? Like obviously fiction is quite broad. Obviously the romance genre is probably going to be the easiest.
Yeah, I'd happily give one of those a go. At the end of the day, I mean, I think I'm at a level with my Mandarin. I'm not too bothered about the content. I'll just be buzzed to be getting through a book and enjoy it and understanding it all. I think I'll be just happy. I'd enjoy that process in and of itself. One thing though, I mean, I am much more comfortable with simplified characters than I am with traditional, purely because I never learned, I think I mentioned in the video before, I never learned characters when I was learning Cantonese. I didn't learn a single one. And then I only started learning characters when I started learning Mandarin, and then I went to mainland. I do understand traditional ones as well, but my simplified's a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, most books are available in both, which is a good thing. So I've got two books that come to mind. One, and both have movies with it. One of them has an audiobook that's free as well, that I can send you all the links later.
Nice.
But actually, I'll start with the one from China, because you're more interested in Chinese Mandarin. And actually, I was looking at the top-rated books, highest-voted books in Chinese in terms of like popularity, and this was like number 2 or 3 on the list. And it's not actually that hard. I was thinking like it was my first proper Chinese novel that I read that wasn't a translation. And it was good. Yeah, it's called Huozhe, which is like to living.
I've seen the film. I love the film. So yeah, that's a really good idea to read the book.
The book is the first chapter or 2 is a lot harder than the rest of the book. So I'll just say persist through the first page or 2, and then once you get to the bit when it starts telling the story, it gets a lot easier. I read the book and then watched the film. The film leaves out a lot of detail, and I found it. I wouldn't have known fully what was going on if I hadn't read the book. The ending's different. I'm not going to spoil it now, but I prefer the ending in the book to the film. But the cool thing is there's a website called Himalaya, which is it's the Chinese word for Himalayas, but it's got loads of audiobooks on, and Huozhe, the audiobook is for that on the website, and I think they might have it on YouTube as well. So you can actually find audiobooks to help you as well.
Yeah.
The other one that probably is easier than Huozhe, I guess, because it's a Taiwanese romance one that's quite famous. There's a Taiwanese author called Zhou Ba Dao, and he makes a lot of films. So here's a film called 那些年我们一起追的女孩 which is like the girl that we chased those years or something. Yeah. I think the English name of the film is an apple in your eye or something. But that's got a film. You can watch the film first and see if you like it. It's free on YouTube, the film. The book's pretty entertaining. I enjoyed it. And the vocab and that's not too complicated. And he has a lot of, the good thing if you like that Zhou Ba Dao, he has a lot of similar books. So if you like one, you can just go and he's got maybe 10 that are all like similar levels of difficulty. You can just kind of go around.
Yeah. No, I definitely give that a go. I'd just like to get more comfortable with reading characters, really. Consistently. I've done a lot of rote memorization in my time. Lots and lots of rote memorization.
Have you tried Anki at all?
Yeah, I've done lots of Anki. I've gone through every single HSK word. I've memorized every single one. A while back. I've always liked memorization. I know some people in the language learning community kind of talk about it like it's the devil. Like you shouldn't memorize, you should only learn in context, blah blah blah. But I've always worked well for me.
Yeah. I mean the thing is now there's so many tools that you can do, for example, so you could literally if you wanted an example sentence, you could find the character from the HSK list, Google it, and just take a random sentence that uses it and stick it in a card. Or you can use tools like Subs to SRS to turn Netflix TV shows into a deck of cards with audio and that and pictures, and then you can just search your Anki database for that word and just pick out an example sentence or whatever. But there are things you can do.
Yeah, definitely.
And even now there's a tool where, and this might be useful for you if you wanted to get more into reading, because I'm using it to try and read Condor Heroes. The Chinese name is 射雕英雄传, which is the Legend of the Condor Heroes. It's by a guy called Jin Yong who was originally from Hong Kong, written loads of wuxia stuff, and it's really fucking difficult. So I took the first book, and there's a tool called Chinese Text Analyzer. You can basically feed it a Word document, so you can use something like Calendar to change a PDF to a Word document, and then it spits out a frequency list for the most used words in that book. And you can just start at the top, and you can filter out filter out the words you don't know. So you can say okay, all the words below HSK4 I know, let's take them out, and then it'll just leave you the ones that are left over, and you can literally just start at the top from the most frequent and just go through and add them to Anki cards.
That's really cool. I didn't know anything like that existed. Wow, that sounds like a really cool tool.
I'm planning on making a video on it, but I've just been so lazy.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, I didn't know that that could exist.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I joined a community for Chinese learners on Discord called Refold. It's run by Matt versus Japan, and people share all sorts of useful stuff on that I had no idea existed. So I'm learning a lot of stuff from the people in there.
Yeah. I think I've always been so kind of alone in my language learning that I should have hooked up with more people who are learning Chinese.
Yeah, I guess that's why I like doing the videos like this, to kind of share other people's perspective.
Yeah. Share tips and stuff like that.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Do you want to? Because I'm aware we've been speaking for a while and probably a lot of tangents. Do you want to speak?
I think lots of tangents. Yeah, that's always the problem with these kind of very open-ended kind of calls. You just end up speaking just about everything.
Do you want to speak in Chinese at all, or? We
can do. I don't mind if you want to. Do you want to speak in Mandarin or Cantonese? I suppose Mandarin. You prefer Mandarin a bit more these days. Is that?
兩個都得。
兩個都得咩？我哋講廣東話，講廣東話好啦。你同你嘅女朋友傾偈嘅時候會用英文定係中文？
梗係啦，梗係英文啊。
全部。
係，因為咧，我讀喺大學嘅時候咧，我
可以說普通話，如果普通話更方便的話都可以。
咁我試一下，我哋喺大學嘅時候咧，我哋已經習慣咗用英文溝通咁啦。之後咧，我開始學廣東話嘅時候咧，我們已經習慣咗，所以咧就其實就係咁啦。我覺得如果我哋已經習慣咗用英文溝通嘅話咧，用廣東話 有一啲奇怪嘅感覺。唔係嗎？
我 feel 我都係咁樣覺喎。因為我媽媽係德國人，跟住我長大嘅時候，佢冇同我講德文，細個嘅時候冇講德文，
都係英文啊，
都係英文，全部都係英文。跟住我讀大學嘅時候，又開始學德文，跟住而家都講得流利，但係我哋係完全唔會講德文，會覺得好奇怪，即係佢唔會，我用德文同佢講，佢就會用英文答我。
係咪真啊？嚇？因為我聽過好多呢啲 BBC、ABC， 佢哋嘅爸爸媽媽佢哋會用中文其他講，但係佢哋會用英文回答。
回答。Yeah. Exactly. 跟住佢哋大個咗之後就會後悔。因為佢哋都聽得明，但係唔係好識得講。好似我而家嘅廣東話咁啦。唔係啊，你仲識得講啊，你都 OK 喎。少少啫嘛。好似你有講就，我覺得如果你用少少時間。係冇錯，就係聽廣東話，跟住講嘅話，主動去講嘅話，你好快就會學翻呢啲廣東話。我希望係咁樣嘅。咁樣我都覺得呢個你啱啱講呢個奇怪嘅感覺啊，我有一個英國嘅朋友，咁咧我哋已經習慣咗用中文溝通，咁咧我哋用英文。都有呢個奇怪嘅感覺。真係咩？係真嘅。佢係土生土長嘅英國人，佢係本地英國人。係，沒錯。沒錯。沒錯。沒錯。我還係就。哇！所以你哋用普通話係嘛？是，係。放棄了。我都有啲識講中文嘅鬼佬朋友，但係我哋從來冇，除非有一個香港或者中國人喺度嘅話，我哋都會用英文溝通。係咯，interesting， very interesting。Yeah。咁你有冇啲咩其他語言你想學？日文你係真係想學咩？定係你覺得係之後你可能會之後學？點講咧？我將廣東話同埋呢個國語學好之後咧，可以開始學日文，但係問題就係。學好係咩定義啊？我唔記得點講啊。那個真的，因為好，我們用中文吧。因為真的，你要聽過一個成語，就是學海無涯，你永遠都有新的東西你可以學。那你怎麼說？你把一個語言學完的話，是有什麼定義呢？我覺得永遠不會滿意。所以呢，我說我把中文學好以後會開始學日文，但是有可能那個日子不會到來。對，你學的更多你學越多就越能感覺出來你啥都不懂，其實你還是有很多東西要學，還是有很多不知道的東西。是。但我都覺得，如果你已經會講中文、廣東話的話呢，可能你學日文不會太難吧？因為很多字聽起來差不多。你有那個 moment， 好像日文也有這個字 moment， 是沒問題的意思。 有一点吧，因为有一些某些单词真的听起来有点像，你一看就知道是同源的，但是当然也有汉字也有用，但是那个语法
有汉字啊，已经会汉字吧？
对，已经看懂，但是就那个语法就是完完全全不一样，然后听起来很像的单词也没有那么多。其实，听起来像就是英语本来是英语的日语单词更多，我的英语更有用，更有帮助。学日语，如果你学日语的话，
我听过是大概10%，10%，大概是英文来的字，就有那个，尤其是你要讲一个关于运动的字，比如说高尔夫球啊，是打篮球啊什么的，都是从英文来的单字。因为我怎么知道呢？我在台湾的时候，我读书的时候有很多那些日本来的同学们，然后有的时候我们去讨论高尔夫球好吗？然后我有很多字中文我不会 ，fairway、green、driver 什么的，但是因为那个运动是从英国来的，所以跟日文是一模一样。那我不会中文的话呢，我就因为课里2个日本的同学，他们一点英文都不会，但是我说英文的高尔夫球单词他们都听得懂，因为是跟日文一样。
对，是的，没错。很多时候，如果你不知道怎么说一个单词的时候，你可以用日语的发音说那个英语的单词，然后很有可能他们会听懂。比如说，我不知道怎么说 jogging 跑步。然后 jogging 真的是 jogging 真的是，
或者是 polyglot 这个呢，也是吗？比如
很多会有那个日语，就是传统日语的单词，也会有一个英语的，就是从英语来一个说法。
对，那可能中文广东话国语2个都会，英文都会，那日语有什么好怕的？没有吧？
没有吧？对，
頑張ってください。
现在我不讲，真的不讲。其实今天早上我已经上了一节课，日语课在 iTalki 上面，但是还是一个 beginner， 还是初步学，就是刚开始的那种，比较还是挺辛苦的。其实我觉得日语跟中文不一样的是，我觉得中文的一开始是最难的一部分，那个前6个月1年的时间，因为你要习惯那个发音音调，那么多跟英语完完全全不一样的单词，很多就是那个开始已经很难，但是日语的开始比较容易，因为那个发音简单，然后有很多英文啊，但是因为日语的语法，特别是比较 advanced 的日语的语法很复杂，所以你学的越久，我就会觉得越难。就相反的，那个开始是容易的，但是以后会越来越难。
中文有一个成语就是万事开头难，就是你刚开始学一个新的东西的时候是最难的。那个可能中文我没有这个感觉，因为有广东话的帮助。
对。
但日语的话呢，可能因为你已经会汉字嘛，那你学那个平假名嘛，然后那个hiragana katakana就好了，你已经可以开始看懂日文。但是那个怎么说呢？好像我觉得你说发音是很容易，可能容易弄他们听懂，但如果你要说的跟母语者一样， 好像日文也有那个，我没有那个目标，我就是说，所以说也有好像声调一样的东西叫 pitch accent， 你可能听过。那如果我就是听我的朋友说，他们说 pitch accent 比中文的声调还有难，因为你每一个声调听起来大不一样。但那个 pitch accent 的话呢，可能要吃力才听得出来那个差别在哪儿。
对，我其实我日语还没有到一个那么好的地步，其实我还没有接触过 pitch accent， 但是我也听说有那个东西啊。对，但我听说他们可以看那个上下文那个 context。然后从上下文，一般来说可以从上下文听出来你的意思是什么，就是他们能猜到。
对，应该可以吧，因为没有中文的声调那么重要，所以大部分的人不会提到 pitch accent 这个问题。对，因为好像我自己不会讲日文，但是我听过的例子就是哈西，好像一个可能我的发音是错，不要怪我就是给个例子而已。那一个是 bridge，一个是桥 bridge， 一个是筷子。
OK，
那可能你看那个上下文那个语境就知道是哪一个。但是说错的话，可能那个母语者会要想一想才听懂你的意思。对，但我自己没有学日文的经验，所以我就是我的朋友告诉我而已。
对，但是中文的话，他们一般来说，特别是我觉得有时候我觉得比较惊讶，特别我现在就比较少会有这个问题啊，但是我觉得香港人、大陆人，不管是广东话或者普通话都好，他们很不能。就是如果你的声调说的有点错的话，他们不太能猜到你在说什么。很多时候我会觉得那个上下文很明显，但是他们还是不能猜不到。你有没有觉得？
我觉得如果是每一两个句子就是一个字就算了，但可能问题就是很多初级者他们开始说话的时候呢，他们的声调可能一个句子一半是错的。
对，
那怎么能找得到呢？这个很多的错误是不可能的。我觉得还有一个问题就是我以英文为例好吗？那个比较好懂，有很多字在那个上下文你可能觉得是很明显，但是如果听起来完全别的字的话呢，你可能会想到别的字。比方说我跟你说 Do you want to go eat some dessert？
Yeah。
那你觉得什么沙漠，为什么我要吃那个沙子，很难吃是不是？但很明显你看那个上下文是甜点，但他们很多母语者可能猜不到，因为母语者的语感是很强，我们觉得很明显是 dessert 跟 desert 听起来完全不一样的字，那你要从他们的观点来看，可能声调听起来完全不一样。所以我们说错的话也是很明显。
你说的很有道理。一个大陆人经常会说错的一个字是那个
花生
peanuts。Yeah, that one definitely. Also snack， 他们经常想说 eat a delicious snack， 他们会说 snake。
是吗？
对啊 delicious， 对啊 I'll take you to eat a delicious snake and yeah， 对于他们来说听起来很像，特别像。
对不起，我不吃蛇肉。很恶心啊。其实在台湾的什么的夜市，我看到他们很多人就会吃蛇肉。我觉得
我也吃过。
真的吗？不是奇怪吗？
还好吧，没有那么不一样啊。我在香港的时候呢，我吃过，你可以吃那个蛇汤，有点像汤。对，你不吃肉对吧？所以
对，我什么都不吃，鸡、牛、羊都不吃。
在中国的时候，我也吃过，来
素，
昆虫，普通话怎么说 ？insects， 虫子，
虫子，
对，
虫类。
对，虫子，对，在越南，我也吃
什么
过。
虫子呢？我在泰国的时候，我不知道中文叫什么，我开始吃素以前，我吃过 scorpions。
我也吃过，
觉得很难吃，真的很难吃。
有点咸，对吧？
没有只是难吃而已，没有什么味道。
对，就是一个挑战，是一个 challenge， 对吧？
就是我的朋友跟我说，好，你要吃那个，好，我试试看。因为是男孩嘛，你在一起的时候，你会逼人做可能他们不想做的事，这是英国的文化，就是班子。
特别是喝了一点酒之后，就更有可能。
对。好。
那你那个疫情完了之后，你有没有什么去中国或是不知道什么地方亚洲地方的计划吗？
亚洲的话，可能我第一个地方要去是日本。
我也是。
因为我去年我就在台湾的学校有很多日本的同学，那我很久没有看到他们，而且他们两个都很喜欢滑雪，就是 skiing。所以我会去那边去试试看，可以跟他们一起住，然后每天去滑雪会很好玩，我觉得
很好玩。
所以可能我不是说一定，但有可能我去以前可能2个月会学一点点日文，我还没有决定，因为我觉得一件事我要接受的是，我不可以把每一个语言学到很高级的程度，那个是不可能的。那可能好像西班牙文一样，可以学一点点，吃完，然后回家以后可以重新开始学口语就好了，不要想那么多。
明白。你跟我说过你是一个比较就是很 obsessive 的人，我也是。你能不能在一个时间学两种语言？就比如说我早上学这个，晚上学那个，或者我这个礼拜学这个，下个礼拜学那个？
不行，不可以，不可以。我觉得你专心越多，你会进步的越快。我觉得从一个小路的观点来看，同学学2种语言是比较没有效的方法。为什么会这样说呢？就是因为你要看很多，最重要，我觉得学一个新的语言的时候，最重要的是学单字，因为你不会单字的话，就算你的发音很好，就算你的语法也很完美，你都听不懂，因为你没有那个单字。那我觉得你要想，如果你是每一天学1到2个小时的话，可能你要说一个新的单词，可能你会碰到一个新的单词1-2次。如果是4个钟头，可能是4-5次。那如果是每一天学2种语言的话，可能你会碰到的几率会变得比较低。所以呢，我觉得你要花比较多的时间复习你已经学会的单词，那你可以用比较小的时间的比例学新的东西。
对，明白，有道理啊，有道理啊。我觉得也是不是 beginner 2个都是 beginner 的话，就也有这个问题啊。如果一个你已经学了比较久，然后说的还可以比较流利，然后另外一个你刚开始了，你可以在一个时间保持说那个，然后学这个。
有可能，对。那我们以前开始讨论 学语言的时候，你说给你动力的是你看你进步的，可能你看，可能就是我第一天说话的时候很吃力，什么都不能表达，但第二天或许第二个礼拜、第三个礼拜什么的，你会说的越来越有力，那你进步的速度啊，我觉得越快，我越有动力。所以那个是为什么我也比较喜欢专心这种语言。
对，我也知道，是的，这个是语言学习的很好的一点。好的，
口语讲得很好。
你的也是。普通
话比我好几倍。
不一定，其实我觉得跟我说，就是我跟你说过，就是我觉得我的问题是那个深度，有很多单词，因为你看过书，你肯定你的词量肯定比我好，我只是说了很多，我有很多朋友，中国的朋友只会跟他们说中文，所以我说的很流利，说出来很容易表达我的想法，但是很多比较复杂的东西我都不知道，所以我觉得这个是因为这个原因我才要去看多一些书。
好，加油。但那个深度也是我的问题，因为你要讨论一个话题越深的话，你需要的单词也是越多，是吧？那我现在的话，我觉得我的单词量还不足，所以就要加油，就要继续学，继续听，继续阅，多听多说多读。多写。是
没错。
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good fun, mate. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
I didn't think we'd speak for almost 2 hours, but there you go. When you have a lot to talk about.
Definitely, yeah. Keep in contact. We should do a part 2 sometime.
Definitely, yeah.
Sure. Good stuff, mate. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to click stop recording now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. If anyone actually watched the whole thing, thank you so much. And I'll leave links to various things that we talk about if I remember in the comment section, in the description, sorry. Any questions, just let me know. And any questions for Alex, I'm sure he'll have a look and I can always pass on the questions to him later. Cool. Peace.